All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something you interact with literally every single day, your diet. I'm so excited to get into this with you because we are going to completely dismantle this deeply flawed black and white world of modern dietary guidelines. For decades, we've basically been told that certain foods are the absolute good guys and others are the pure bad guys. But as we're going to see, modern science tells a totally different and honestly a way more fascinating story.
Seriously, think about this. What if the healthy diet you're so rigidly following right now is actually doing you harm? It's a pretty wild thought, right? So put on your medical detective hats for a second, because today we're shattering the whole illusion that nutrients can just be universally labeled as heroes or villains. The reality is, the very foundations of how we judge health info need a massive overhaul.
Okay, let's jump right into section 1, the poison is the dose. This is the core scientific concept that completely unravels the whole good versus bad binary myth. Simply put, we have to stop thinking of nutrients as an on-off switch, like it's either healthy or it isn't. Instead, I want you to picture a volume dial. This is the dose-response curve, specifically a property called hormesis. It's this fundamental biological principle where a low dose of a substance actually stimulates your body to beneficially adapt. But if you crank that volume dial all the way up, it causes toxicity and harm. So it's not really about what the substance is. It's entirely about how much of it there is. And you know what? This principle applies perfectly to the most universally accepted healthy substance on the planet, water. We all know low-dose water is absolutely vital for life and cellular function. But if you chug massive amounts of it in a super short period, it actually induces water intoxication. It dilutes the sodium in your blood, causing a condition called hyponatremia. And that can lead to brain edema, seizures, and yeah, tragically, even death. It's wild, but it proves the ultimate rule of toxicology. Literally, any necessary element becomes lethal when you push past its appropriate threshold. So if the amount matters so much, who actually decides what the right amount is? Well, that brings us to section 2. Your DNA rewrites the menu. We constantly hear the mantra, sugar is bad, right? But that generic rule completely falls apart when you look at how different bodies actually process something like fructose. Get this. The exact same amount of sugar fed to two different people will trigger completely different bodily reactions. Why? Because of your unique genetic polymorphisms, basically those specific individual variations in your DNA, along with the exact makeup of your gut microbiome. So, metabolically speaking, depending on your genetics, your body might secrete insulin completely differently from the person sitting right next to you. Your blood sugar response, totally unique. Even the rate your body produces uric acid or the levels of unabsorbed sugars sitting in your digestive tract will vary wildly. It really goes to show how a single input, fructose in this case, creates drastically different metabolic outcomes based entirely on your specific biological hardware. All right, so we've looked at dose and genetics. Now let's explore section 3, the long-term adaptation, and see how our bodies adjusts to so-called healthy compounds over time. Take polyphenols, for instance. You find them in green tea, berries, dark chocolate, and they're pretty much universally labeled as good. But there's a fascinating twist here. If you consume a high dose of specific polyphenols, like tannins, in the short term, they can actually act as villains. They literally form these complexes that block your small intestine from absorbing iron, and they can even spike your oxidative stress. If we only ever looked at that short-term data, we'd probably say polyphenols are dangerous. But let's follow this timeline a bit further. Short-term, yeah, iron absorption is severely blocked. But studies show that after about 12 weeks of high-dose black tea consumption, your intestinal cells actually adapt to that high polyphenol load. So over the long term, your iron metabolism completely stabilizes, and your serum ferritin levels can actually increase. Your body just adjusts. And this perfectly illustrates why relying solely on short-term observational data to make sweeping universal nutrition rules is such a massive scientific fallacy. So here's the really crucial point. Nutrients never, ever act alone. They don't just exist in a vacuum. They live in these highly complex food matrices where they're constantly interacting with each other. Like if you consume vitamin C alongside plant-based iron, it acts synergistically to boost absorption. But if you consume tannins with it, it inhibits absorption. You just cannot recommend an isolated nutrient amount without looking at the whole food matrix it's wrapped in.
Which brings us to a factor that absolutely shatters these uniform guidelines. Section 4, desk workers versus laborers. We're going to see how environmental and occupational context changes everything.
Okay, check out this massive number, 15 to 20 grams. Standard dietary guidelines usually tell us to keep our daily sodium intake under 2 grams, but 15 to 20 grams? That is the amount of salt lost in sweat in a single day by an unacclimatized manual laborer working out in the heat.
Let's just contrast these two realities for a second. The climate-controlled desk worker might honestly thrive on that strict less than 2 grams of sodium guideline. But the heavily sweating manual laborer, they literally need 3 to 4 times that recommended limit just to survive and maintain basic physiological function. So telling that laborer to restrict their salt to 2 grams isn't just incorrect, it's scientifically dangerous.
And you know, geography completely rewrites the rulebook too. Think about the traditional high-salt, fermented diets of the Inuit in the Arctic or Nordic cultures. This isn't just because they happen to prefer a salty flavor profile. In extreme cold, vascular constriction, and the intense biological demand for thermoregulation make these high-salt diets a totally rational, necessary biological adaptation. Climate fundamentally dictates what your body needs.
And that brings us to the climax of our investigation. Section 5, Welcome to Precision Nutrition. As we're seeing, the uniform generalized guidelines we've blindly trusted for so long are kind of crumbling. And that's largely because they're built on inherently flawed observational studies that try to just average out human complexity. Just to give you a quick historical lesson on why that's so risky, for years, observational data strongly suggested that supplementing with beta-carotene was beneficial. But later, when scientists finally ran rigorous randomized controlled trials, the results were actually pretty shocking. In certain populations, beta-carotene supplementation was genuinely harmful. So heavily relying on observational data without accounting for a multi-layered human complexity, it's just a recipe for bad science. And this realization forms the foundation of a totally new paradigm. The future isn't about eating for the average human, because guess what? The average human doesn't exist. The future is precision nutrition. This approach calculates your ideal diet based on these core pillars: your specific genetic phenotype, your unique gut microbiome composition, your individual metabolic responses, the environmental and climatic factors you live in, and your cultural dietary habits. The source material we've been analyzing today really sums it up perfectly with this stark warning. The current uniform recommendations cannot keep up with scientific progress and may even be inappropriate or harmful for many individuals. We absolutely have to stop blindly trusting universal numbers and start honoring our individual biology. Which brings me to the final, really provocative question I want to leave you with today. Ask yourself, are you eating for the average human, or are you eating for you? It's time we demand science that respects our unique complexity. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.